I'm assuming that you already have a basic idea of how to do a Maya, so this isn't from scratch. We're going to quickly take this into the walking Maya. So be sure that you've warmed up thoroughly first. Go ahead and stand with your feet parallel. Your knees are nice and soft, slightly bent. We're going to work the knees going right and left, right and left. Allowing the knees to move the hips, we're going to lift the right out and left. Good. Going right and left. Right and left. Right and left. Alrighty, so when we're doing a Maya, there's a few ways to approach your move. So let's just start with the absolute easiest. I think that the absolute easiest way to do a Maya is to lift your heels as you press your weight out to the side. Pressing your weight out to the side right after you've lifted the heels, and you're not worrying too much about what your knees are doing. Let's go ahead and try to take our arms out of this a little bit so that we're not moving the upper body quite so much as we were. If you put your arms down and you let your body kind of slop along with you, pull along with you, it doesn't have as nice of a dissociation. So I think it's better if you focus on your rib cage staying nice and still, your movement going out and away from you, so that when you lift the heel, you naturally just pull the hip out to the side when the heel goes down. Slowing that way down, lifting the heel and going out, lifting the heel and going out. Good. I'm assuming that you already have a basic idea of how to do a Maya, so this isn't from scratch. But we're going to quickly take this into the walking Maya. So this is going to make it a little bit more of a complicated movement. You're going to raise up off your heels and press the weight to the side as you step down. So where you might have trouble with this move is if you're not actually getting the hip down away from the rib cage, you might find that you get stuck like this. So this, I'm shoving my hips to the side, but there's just not enough vertical movement to get me to do the Maya on its own. So with the walking Maya, if we start with the easiest way to do a Maya, where we just lift the heel and press the hip out at the same time, and we take that up, and if you start to get stuck here, we need to work on the Maya with the heels down so that you're actually stretching in the waist. So to make sure that you're actually stretching in the waist, let's start with the arms up, and we're going to work the knees. We're going to bend right and bend left. Bend right and bend left. And pull the hips down. Now pull the hip down and stretch the arm up. Pull the hip down and then stretch the arm up. Reverse. Now let's do this a few times on the right, bending and straightening, so that you're feeling that hip actually go away from your waist. The hip goes down when the knee bends. Bending the knee gets your hip closer to the floor. So let's shake that out and do this on the right. Reach Make sure you really feel this stretch. That's what you want to feel in the Maya. Every time your hips go down, you need that stretch in the waist. So if we have the heels up and we're kind of slopping out like this, we're gonna get stretched here, maybe in the top of the ribs, but in terms of the actual vertical movement, that's not gonna stretch. So let's go to having our heels down, a slightly harder way of doing a Maya, and we're going to straighten right, push out right, and switch which knee is straight while your hip is still out. Now bring the hips under your armpit, out past the heel. At this point, the legs switch. Now my left leg is more bent, my right leg is trying to straighten. Transfer your weight to the outside edge of the right foot. Switch the knees. Transfer your weight to the outside edge of the left foot. Switch the knees. And if you haven't really been pulling your hips down up till now, this is where we want to feel it. This is where we want that stretch. If you're having trouble getting your hips down in a Maya and you feel like your back is tight, you need to focus on stretching out your lower back and your hip flexors. So make sure that you add some of that into your warm-ups and cool-downs. That'll make this a lot easier. But first is to have that awareness of the technique so that you really are pulling the hip down. Now let's try walking with it. So we can start just with heels up. And then we're going to lift the heels. And we're going to take a step and pull the hip down, pull the hip down. Okay, so some other things you might find challenging with walking Maya is the weight shift. So we've talked about how you have to get the hip down, down, down. Now let's talk about how we shift the weight. There's a moment where you are going to feel like you're on one foot. That's good. Go ahead and try actually standing on one foot for a second as you pull the hip down. Here we go on the left. Here we go on the right. Okay, so there's a moment where your hip is down. It's really super unnatural. Your hip is down and you're balancing almost on one leg. So when you're balancing on that leg and you're doing the step, that's your opportunity to sneak the other foot forward. I'm stepping on my right. I have my weight down on my right. I'm almost standing completely on my right. I sneak this foot forward. What keeps me from feeling like I'm going to fall over or have a balance issue is that my sneaking foot, it's not actually lifting up off the floor. My sneaking foot is holding a little tiny bit of my body weight, like 10%, as it just glides forward. So that's how you'll be able to manage standing almost on one foot with your hip down in a Maya. So let's review what we've learned about walking Maya so far. So that's the hip actually has to go down. If you've been a beginner for a while, you're almost intermediate, and you're finding this is where where the metal meets the road. I don't know what to say. This is where if you don't have the vertical drop, you really start to notice it. So we're practicing Maya with the heels down so that we get more stretch. We're trying to put more lower back, hip flexor, waist, so as into the warm up and cool down, right? And then that's going to help us really get the hip down and using the knees very consciously. Then when we're stepping, we're going to pull the hip down and glide on the back foot to allow us to make that loop. Alrighty, let's practice this together. Let's start flat-footed. Think about your breath. Heels up. Flat-footed. Heel up on the right, push to the right, up on left, push to the left. Pull the hip down, pull the hip down. Use the knees, use the knees, use the knees. Good. Heels down, just as big. Sliding your hips out when one hip is up. Slide it out. One hip is up. Slide it out. Slide it out. Good. Toes. And flat. And toes. And flat. Heel up. And walk. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 2. Step, step. Glide the feet. Glide left, glide right, glide left, glide right, glide left, glide right. Keep going. You don't have to walk in a circle if you have more space. Glide right, glide left, glide right, glide left. Good. Heels down. Make it low. Shake it out. Give it a good shake. Go ahead and do my back relaxing video, and then I'll see you here next time. Great job. Thank you so much for sticking with me, and I hope you like this video. Please subscribe and dance with me anytime.